Hello and welcome to TNA Top 10. I'm here with Andrew as always. Thanks for coming, Andrew. And we are about to talk about a wild week 7 in college football.
Did you just say thanks for coming?
Oh, yeah, whatever.
It's our show because I don't do that gimmick where I say it's your show. This is our show. And yeah, wild. What the hell is going on in the SEC, Terry? That's what I
60
want to
minutes is
know
not enough, apparently.
twice. Um, and that's what he said. So you're welcome. We hadn't done one of them all night. But yeah, SEC, buddy. The Southeastern Conference is proving that, we joke about, does anyone want to win the Big 12? Does anybody want to win the ACC? I don't know if anyone other than Texas wants to win the SEC.
Well, and I said coming into this that it's been Alabama and Georgia at the top and then a big collection of teams. Alabama and Georgia may have slipped into that big collection of teams, and Texas may be just sitting on top.
We're going to find out in Austin this weekend just how good both those teams are.
We are.
And
is Kirby going to shove anybody this weekend?
Oh my God. Mississippi State put 31 on them too. That is not good.
And we'll get to that in a minute, but yeah.
And he shoves quarterback. Apparently he was going after the defensive coordinator, his, not theirs. And Kirby will get fired up now. He gets real animated, but
the funny thing is I saw that described as inadvertently shoves the opposing quarterback, and I'm like, inadvertent? Really?
Oh yeah, there was nothing.
Word we're going with.
There was nothing inadvertent about it if you watched it on video. I'm like, because here's the thing, and I we're always pretty honest with our audience, which we appreciate everybody for joining us. Well, I didn't watch this game. I ducked in a couple times, but I didn't watch it. You know why? It's Mississippi State playing Georgia. There were so many other games that had my attention. This was not one of them. No disrespect.
And we'll get to all the SEC games and the overtimes and everything, but I got to ask you something. So we had a Big 12 show, and we picked who was going to win the Big 12. And if you look at the standings right now, I swear they just turned it upside down.
Yeah, so I picked Utah. Great defense. Veteran quarterback. Veteran quarterback who now has a lower leg injury and could be back for his 8th year. I will not be picking Utah next year. Oklahoma State, been in the conference.
Yeah.
Most tenured coach in the conference. Because Gundy been there longer than Dan Whittingham's been at Utah.
Right.
And you would think, okay, these guys, all of a sudden Iowa State's number 9 in the AP poll, undefeated. And we talked about them being a middle of the road team, Terry. We didn't give them any type of shot.
And then Kansas, they were ranked in the top 25 in the preseason, and they've just fallen apart.
Oh, derailed. And K-State's looking good. Obviously we've got that for the Colorado game, but
we're looking possibly Iowa State, K-State. Yeah.
Yeah. Old Big 10 or Big 12, Big 8 rivalry. So, the Big 12 is wide open. The SEC, not so much. The ACC, not so much. And God knows what's happening, in the Big 10, because we had some topsy-turvy business there, too, this weekend. So
let's get into it then. That's a good segue for this one. Ohio State went to Eugene and walked away with a 1-point loss. And there was a spit in the face that happened out there.
Threw him out of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oregon player got thrown out for spitting in the face, and Dan Lanning went for touchdowns instead of field goals. And I said, oh God, here we go again. Just like Washington last year. Ohio State, I still believe, was the better team.
Yeah.
They did not play like it. And I know Oregon
that's got to be considered.
That's got to be considered. But you look at the coaching staff between Day and Kelly versus, no offense. I just lost his name. Oregon's head coach. I just lost his name. Dan Lanning. You look at Dan Lanning, and it's just mismatch, you would think. But when you look at your time of possession is off there, Terry.
Is
You
it?
got 42:08 for Oregon and 33:04 for Ohio State.
I'm gonna screw something up. I type in a lot of things here.
It's okay.
Did
But
they not go into 5 overtimes?
yeah, no. Ohio State's management, though, of the game at the end of the game, Oregon got the stops when they needed to. Gabriel played when he needed to. They played a clean game. 3 penalties, 20 yards, no turnovers. That's huge. But what against that highly touted defense of Ohio State, Terry? Look at third down, 12 for 18.
Oh
12
yeah,
for
big time.
18. And I think that you meant 23:04 for Ohio State because Oregon controlled this football game on the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, I'm trying to look it up
I
real
would say
quick.
we can look it up real quick, but
Yeah, I got you. But I mean, this is I think game of the year so far easily. Number 2 against number 3 in the same conference.
and maybe the first of 3 potentially that you're going to see because if both teams make the playoffs and the Big 10 championship game, you could theoretically see this game 3 total times this season, Terry. And
Yeah, Oregon had it 26 minutes, so I was way off on that. I must have held that off from a different game or something.
Oregon only had the ball 26 minutes.
Yeah, 33. So 33:04 is right, and it was
Then
rest of it.
it must have been an imbalance in the halves because yeah,
Yeah,
26-56 because I'm gonna tell you this, they Oregon came out and they had that ball for 7 minutes or so and they only got a field goal out of it. You can't do that against Ohio State. But anyway,
but
clean
then, like
game.
Bryant says here about the end of the game, there's a lot of talk about the 12 men on the field penalty.
Yeah,
Um,
I was getting there. But yeah.
okay, well, go ahead, sir.
No, you're fine. What's the play? What's the call on the
So
12?
people think that he did it on purpose
Yep.
and run some clock, and then Ohio State ran out of time, and
So
Howard scored.
the other thing that got scrutinized before that, and Bryant and I were texting, I thought Ohio State, the way they were driving on that last down, was that they were just going to score and they were going to win the football
Mhm.
game. They get called for offensive pass interference, big time block by the either the tight end or the wide receiver. Ball is not in the air. So you know me arguing with Ohio State fans, because it's productive. It's about like talking politics when you're talking college football on the Twitters. I went ahead and shared the rule with a friend of mine. The rule only applies after the ball is thrown. Offensive pass interference occurs when the offensive player makes contact with the defender beyond the neutral zone during the pass. There was no pass, but he was beyond the neutral zone. Here's the other thing. Pass interference can also be called on offenses if the receiver engages in a similar action to prevent the defender from making a play on the ball. It is pass interference by either team when the act by a player more than 1 yard beyond the line of scrimmage significantly hinders the eligible player's ability to make a play. Textbook pass interference because he knocked down the defender of Oregon. If he had bumped him, Terry, and had been bump and run, they don't call pass interference on that.
Right.
I think offensive pass interference is kind of stupid unless it's really a big time grab or shove or whatever, because Nebraska would be 6-0 if it weren't for an offensive pass interference call in the Illinois game. Pick play. Completely dodged the guy. Called it offensive pass interference. So, um, that definitely does not help when you're 3rd and 25 all of a sudden against Oregon's defense. And then piss poor management by Ohio State at the end of the game. Will Howard's got to throw the ball away. He's got to give him a second on the clock. You can't be sliding and trying to make a play downtown. So anyway,
Yeah, and it's one of those things. I guess he was. obviously he was a good quarterback last year and transferred in. There were a lot of questions about whether he can handle being at that level, and I don't know. This is the biggest game he's played so far, and there looked like there were some mistakes.
Big game of the year, but again, you look at this. Oregon's defense bent, but they didn't necessarily break.
Right.
They left points on the board because they could have kicked 2 field goals, and this game isn't as close as it turned out. You could have been 38-31, not 32-31. And you look at that defense of Ohio State, got pressed, got pushed, got tested. Oregon ran the ball, and by being able to run the ball some, they open up the entire playbook for Gabriel, who is a very good quarterback, very seasoned quarterback, and does not wilt under the pressure. So yeah, great football game, best game of the year because this one all game. I thought Ohio State at halftime was going to make some adjustments, and we're going to do what I predicted last week. They're going to blow the doors off of Oregon because Ohio State is that football team. We saw them do it against Iowa. They go in 7-0. They end up winning 35-7, and they slam the door shut on Iowa. But make no mistake about it, Oregon is not Iowa. This is a team that can score. Very young coach. He's my age, 38, 39, motivated, knows they were 2 games away, 2 plays away from national championship football last year. So Dan Lanning knows he made mistakes last year, Terry, but he still made the same call going for a field goal this year or this past week,
That's
or
right.
touchdown. So I
You
don't
can
think
say he didn't learn his lesson, but he ended up winning this football game. So,
and you're not going to get him to change. He believed in
right.
him. So
Well, that's the thing. I think he's an offensive-minded guy. He's going to show his offense that he believes in them a lot more before he's going to show his defense that he believes in them. So he's going to show.
which is hilarious because he was the former defensive coordinator on the national championship team for Georgia.
But he's really calling it toward the offense.
Well, it's aggressive, like you said.
Yeah.
There's those that school of thought where we go for everything on 4th down. We do onside kicks. We
Right.
don't, And by the way, that Oregon onside kick on Ohio State was a thing of beauty when he drilled that ball as hard as he could, square into the chest of the Ohio State, and the kicker recovered the ball. He had no idea that ball was coming, Terry. That was fantastic. Great play. Great play. But anyway.
All right, let's get my bad math out of the way and go to the next game. And I'm going to be checking this the whole time for every game. We got Penn State at USC. This is one of the overtime games. Penn State escapes with a victory here. And they had to come back to do it.
Penn State turned the ball over 3 times, or this game isn't close. It's just not. SC found a little offense. They found some defense, obviously. Drew Aller turned the ball over for Penn State. He hasn't been bad. He hasn't been doing that, but he certainly did, and that doesn't work. But SC is not as good a football team as they think they are, and they're going to continue to run into this problem. Pressure defenses that are going to make you pay. And Penn State was one of the top defenses in the country coming into this game. Surrendered some points, surrendered some yards. Kind of a gimmick play that put them in the tie, but James Franklin gets it done at SC. I don't know, Terry, if we call this a big game. I mean, I think it's a big game on their schedule, but it's not Michigan. It's not Ohio State. It's not a Big Ten championship.
Well, it's another test of some sorts for Penn State, and that's a big question when you go to rank the teams. Penn State's rolling right now, but there's always those questions about can they beat the big teams. Obviously, like you said, USC is not that team yet, or not that team this year. So they haven't faced those big teams yet, but they had to go into overtime to beat USC. What does that mean when they play Ohio State?
Well, and listen to this, because this is completely flipped, but you can tell they're playing from behind. Penn State threw the ball 31 out of 44 times, attempts, completion, 31 out of 44. Yeah. USC 20 for 34. But Penn State's rushing was only 118, 3.8 yards a carry, where with the benefit of a huge run to score a touchdown, 75 yards, SC went 24 runs, 8 yards a carry, 7.9. So, And I love Mike Bober. Franklin will find a way to blow this. Spoken like a true Pitt fan.
Well, that's
Um,
what we keep saying. Um, Lane
but
Kiffin
and
and
James
Franklin.
Franklin.
Yeah,
But yeah, a lot of offense, a lot of mistakes. They got to clean that up. I think Penn State is idle this week, if I'm not mistaken. But
I think
yeah,
so.
it doesn't get easier from here, and they've got a big date with Ohio State in a couple weeks. So, anyway, what other games do we have on the docket?
Well, we're going to head to a bunch of SEC games, and we're going to go ahead and start with Texas and Oklahoma, the first matchup for them in the SEC, and it wasn't close. Texas, right from the start, second quarter, 3 touchdowns, and it was over.
It looked like it was going to be a good game,
Yeah,
and then all hell broke loose.
right.
They got the strip sack, and here they come. And Sarkeesian's defense bowed up, played really sound football defensively, nice physicality, controlling the line of scrimmage, doing those things you want to see, particularly when you have the number one ranking in the country. But let's face it, OU could be 0-6, and this game should mean, still mean something to them.
Yeah, definitely.
34-3. This is the second time in 3 years they have taken a seriously lopsided ass whooping at the hands of Texas and Steve Sarkisian. So, Sark knows what he's got to do. Up next is Texas and Georgia. So in Austin, won't be the 50-50 split, but I mean, you look at the game, they're pretty clean, good on third down,
Yep.
one turnover, 5 penalties. I mean,
Yeah, Texas took a week
five
off.
penalties in a game like this, that's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah, and Texas took a week off. Watched some of the SEC implode a little bit. Came back and put a whooping on their biggest rival. I mean, they're sitting there right at the top, and the others are trying to figure out what they are.
Yeah, and let's be honest about it. There's no reason to lie about it or anything. Um, Texas is probably the number one team in the country,
Yeah,
all around offense, defense, special teams. Oh, and
depth.
by the way, they have 2 quarterbacks that could start anywhere in the country, and that is a luxury when you have, Arch Manning sitting behind Quinn Ewers. And Quinn Ewers, remember, coming off of injury, and this is his performance, 34-3. With an interception. I mean, it was a
Right.
bad throw. So,
But like you
really,
said, you got another point before I move
oh,
on
I
to the
was gonna
next.
say really disappointing for the rivalry that the game was this
Right.
lopsided, but
Well, and
otherwise,
that's what you said. It should have been, no matter what the records were, it should have been a closer game, which kind of brings up the next game because this was not supposed to be this close of a game.
mm-mm.
Tennessee beats Florida 23-17 in OT.
Yeah, very disappointing. Um, Sloppy with the football again, and I get that it's a rivalry game and it's they play this in Jacksonville, don't they? So it's a quote neutral site, but it's not
Do
really
they
a
play
neutral
this
site.
one?
Is this one in Jacksonville,
I
or do
think
I have
that
that wrong?
Florida and Georgia play in Jacksonville.
Oh, okay. So this was at the Rocky Top then.
Yeah.
So that makes it even worse. That makes this even worse, Terry. But anyway, Tennessee has gotten exposed a couple weeks in a row because Arkansas, where'd their defense come from? And now all of a sudden, Florida, who we have said over and over again, myself especially, that Billy Napier is not going to have a job there next year, that the Florida schedule is brutal. And by the way, they lost their quarterback, college ending career injury, torn ACL. Merrick, MERCK, lost the rest of the season. His career is over in college, torn ACL in this game. But as good of a coach as Heifel is, they have got to get this because you got Alabama coming to Tennessee this week, and this isn't going to do it.
Right. And Tennessee fans are saying a lot about Alabama faltering, but, this is not looking like they're going to steamroll anybody.
No, no. And as we've said, you like to say, I'll quote you, they're now playing teams with a pulse.
Yeah.
This isn't the first 3 or 4 teams where you were putting up these gaudy numbers on just rolling Eastern Tennessee or Middle Tennessee or whatever it was.
Right.
These are real football teams now.
Memphis.
So anyway, Sorry about that. The ESPN app went off for some reason.
I've
Anyway,
had that a few
who
times too.
who's up next, Terry?
We got Ole Miss at LSU, and it
Oh,
was another
right.
overtime game, 29-26. LSU wins this one, and we're back to the idea that can Lane Kiffin win the big game?
Can I just
Doesn't
say
look
out
like
loud in a clear voice, I hate Brian Kelly, but Lane got outsmarted and outcoached again
yeah,
in overtime. Much better football team, but look at that stat line. 2 turnovers, 12 penalties,
110 yards.
110 yards. And when you are, whatever you think of LSU, when you're playing in Death Valley, you're playing in Baton Rouge, you're playing under the lights, you talk about an environment. That is an advantage that LSU had. I don't particularly think LSU is nearly as good a football team as the AP and the coaches poll put them. I don't think they're a top 10 football team.
I don't think they have the defense to be, but they had enough defense and enough offense to play with Ole Miss. It kind of matched up well for them, I think.
Yeah, and I had said Lane Kiffin was going to win 12 games this year because I was expecting him to have a loss to Alabama and then to be able to win a game in the playoff.
Yeah.
And even win the SEC championship. We're making our bold Desmond Howard predictions, all of which are wrong, just like Desmond. So good for us. But I mean, literally, it is the NCAA is completely upside down this year, which is fantastic. But for me, I'm not a believer in Brian Kelly, and LSU doesn't have a great defense. And
And
they're
I
going to
saw
need.
today where the LSU defensive coordinator is the highest paid defensive coordinator in the country.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. For
And it's more
whatever reason.
because they need somebody.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and move along. I mean, I think we said what there is to say about this. I mean, Ole Miss, can they win the big one? I don't know. I think LSU's gonna, they already got the loss to start the season off. They're gonna face somebody else who's gonna put them in the ground pretty soon.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We got Mississippi State at Georgia in a game that should not have been anywhere close to this. Georgia escapes with a 10-point win, 41-31. 31 points given up to Mississippi State.
306 passing yards.
Goodness.
I mean, your D-backs, what they do, take the day off? And what about your offense? 609 yards, and you only got 41 points out of that? Those are some big numbers. That's all I'm saying. You got some
Right.
huge, huge numbers, but you only got 41 points. I really, really, really think that Georgia is a very physical, good football team. I think the matchup in Austin is going to be fantastic. This game a lot closer than it deserved to be, Terry. And what we
Yeah.
talked about at the Open, the biggest story coming out of this game was Kirby Smart putting his hands on the Mississippi State quarterback,
Right.
pushing him out of the way, going after the D coordinator, who he was clearly frustrated. And this makes a lot more sense. You give up 300 yards passing to Kirby Smart defense, gave up to 300 yards of passing. That's insanity
And a
right
lot of
there.
this was situational because none of these numbers really jump out at you. They didn't have 4 turnovers. They had 2 interceptions, but they got an interception back. So they didn't lose that by a great deal. Not a ton of penalties here. Third down wasn't that bad, 5 for 11. So
Time of possession, over half the game.
missed
So,
opportunities. I
a
think
lot of them.
they outplayed Mississippi State a lot more than a 10-point win, but they're lucky to get the 10-point win.
Well, and we talked about it last week, and I meant it. Close. In today's football, you have to close, and they didn't close.
Well, speaking of that, we got another similar game here. South Carolina at Alabama. And Alabama, speaking of lucky to walk away with a win, 2-point win, 27-25. People are getting a little frustrated in Tuscaloosa.
Well, you hear it more than I do, but I mean, obviously, I've got the Alabama
Yeah.
diehards I follow and that sort of stuff. Alabama went up 14-0, and I thought, oh God, here they go. They got it,
Right.
straightened out, figured out, whatever. Safety, field goal, touchdown is how that sequence ended for South Carolina in the second quarter. And all of a sudden, South Carolina had all the momentum. and Alabama had to storm back in the fourth quarter, as you see. 313 yards of offense for Alabama
Yeah,
with
that's
Jalen Milroe and Ryan Williams and all the rest of those players there.
right.
Um, penalties are okay, I guess, but 2 turnovers, that don't get it done. And we had talked about last week that we thought Alabama was just going to roll because, they're mad, they lost, whatever, to Vandy. But we also talked about how Carolina had a couple good edge rushers that you better respect and pay attention to, and that obviously affected this game. I just don't think that this Alabama is a championship Alabama football team that we've seen in the past.
They don't have
And
that edge.
you, me, and everybody else is going to have to get used to one thing, and that is Nick Saban is no longer the head coach of the Alabama Crimson Tide.
Right.
And it is a football team that does not look anything like the Alabama Crimson Tide. If
Well, I
you
think
follow pro football at all, like our buddy Anthony Pyrus, love Anthony, listens to us regularly. We thank him for that. He's a Patriots fan. And for so long, Belichick was the face of the New England Patriots. He's not there anymore, and the team is just, they're not winning anymore in New England. So those big time holes and adjustments, these huge coaches, it's going to take something, Terry. It's going to take something. But I think there's like the personality difference is so staggering that people don't know what to do with it. They don't know what to
that
do with.
includes the players. I think, and somebody was speaking to this, and I'd give them credit if I remember who it was, but you got a head coach that is very different than the head coach you had that was so successful. And you got players that have been playing for the other guy, and there might be an adjustment period to play for this guy with a different philosophy. I mean, that might be part of it. They've got to learn how to play for a different head coach.
Well, and I've got people that could speak to this, but it was a couple of coaches. But Tom Osborne, Nebraska, all the winning, all that, never raised his voice, never shouted, never was a screamer, didn't holler,
Right.
all those sort of. A lot of times he just crossed his arms like this, chomping his big red bubble gum, just whatever, calling the plays because he was the offensive coordinator too. We had the Callahan years, which were what they were, and then you got Bo Pelini. You talk about diametrically opposed.
Right.
Bo Pelini, who was a defensive coach on Nick Saban's LSU staff,
Right.
and Les Miles' LSU staff, and then Tom Osborne, the statesman, the never cuss, never swear, never get upset. I mean, he did, but he'd poker face all the time, night and day.
Mm-hmm.
And fans didn't know what to do with it when Pelini would get right in a referee's face, not quite grabbing them by the shirt, but in their face, screaming and hollering. There was a Texas A&M game they lost 9-6. Pelini had two or three penalties against him, one sideline and 2 personals, and they tossed his ass out of the game. So, but he cost the team. You cost the team 15 yards at a time when you do that. I don't know, and I'd have to look, and because I'm not going to sit here and say it never happened. In 25 years as a head coach, I don't think a penalty was ever called on Tom Osborne. Ever. And that just says something, But it's a different mentality. Like DeBoer is so much. I don't want to say like he's laid back, almost as insulting.
Well, he wore a T-shirt on the sideline, and people went mad over that.
Yeah, well, the whole deal. You know the deal with the sidelines for college and pro, don't you? They used to wear suits and ties and all that stuff.
And I guess the guy for the Jaguars did it for a very long time.
Yeah.
Didn't he? Can't remember his name, but I think that was the last guy that I remember doing that.
But Belichick, because they wanted him to wear their gear. Belichick, that's why he did the cutoff sleeves. It was a protest to not being able to wear a tie like the heroes, like a Parcells or whoever. So anyway, this here, Alabama's got some things to do because whether you accept the coaching or not, this is not the national championship contending Alabama Crimson Tide right now.
Right.
Not with a loss to Vandy, and your bounce back is not a rebound. This was not a rebound game. So, and now you're headed to the Rocky Top.
Did you say Vandy?
Fucking
Vandy got
Vandy.
another got another Vin. Vandy got another Vin against Kentucky at Kentucky, 20-13. I don't know. I don't know what to do with this. They lost to freaking Georgia State, but now
Yes,
they're
I,
looking pretty
I I
impressive.
saw something where it said they're 2 or 3 plays away from 6-0. Vandy. I
Yeah,
can't take Vandy. I told our friend Amy, light your candles, because obviously the teller of lies is at work here, because Vandy is 4-2 with the victory over Alabama, and a victory now over Kentucky. Possession, look at that. Third down, they won the turnover battle. 12 and 105 penalties right there, Terry. At home. At home.
goodness.
And both were very well balanced. But yeah, Vandy just taking advantage. And look, let's face it, how many plays get called back? I didn't watch this game, but how many get called back but touchdowns by penalty? How many mistakes were made that cost him, put him out of field goal range as an example? There's a lot of things that could have happened to Kentucky that we didn't, see. But
So what you see here is they didn't even get 300 total yards. I mean, they're not going out and dominating against the defense, but they are very good on third down. They've
yep,
consistently been good on third down, and that just keeps the drive alive, and it
yep.
runs the clock, and you can win football games, especially with a quarterback like they have that can move around as much as he can. That's scary.
Well, last week we talked about this, and you talked about it, and I agree with you, because a third down is this part of the equation. They doubled up Alabama time of possession last week,
Right.
and you wonder why they beat them. They had 40 minutes. They had the ball, and Alabama didn't hold the ball for 20 minutes last week. You wonder why they beat them. If you are Jalen Monroe sitting there on the sideline with your helmet in your hands, you ain't doing nothing if Vanderbilt just continues to convert third down. And like you say, Terry, they don't necessarily even have to score. They
Right.
they they just don't. They don't have to score as long as they're possessing. That's better defense than what they can offer.
And just think about that defense. You get them to third down, they convert again. You get them to third down, they convert again. You get them
Yep.
to third down, they convert again. That might influence the defense to make a mistake because they want to make something happen, and then you torch them for a touchdown.
Yep.
Let's move out of the SEC, and we are going to go to Pittsburgh. We got Cal at Pitt. Very good game. Cal is that team that's been a tough game for everybody. But Pitt stays alive, stays
Can't
undefeated,
close.
17
Cal
15.
can't close, and they should have. Because let's face it, Bober and I talked about this already a little bit. He said this was an ugly win. Sometimes your wins are ugly. And
Yeah,
I mean that we're learning that this season, that winning is what matters. Again, the whole Nebraska thing. Well, Nebraska only beat Rutgers 14-7. It was kind of ugly, but they won, and their defense played lights out, which is why James Williams needs a black shirt. But here, Pittsburgh 6-0. Talk about possession, Terry. Almost double, 17 minutes. 17 minutes on the nose, different. You don't win football games like that most of the time. But you certainly don't win football games if you're going to commit 110 yards of penalties either on Cal's part. And they forced 2 interceptions. And we've talked about this. Cal has a very good pass defense. A very good pass defense. So good for Pittsburgh being able to get a lead, hold on to the lead. But look what California did to him in the second half. Blanked him. Blanked him. And Pittsburgh, I didn't even watch this game. I saw some plays, of course, the
right.
Sports Center. Pittsburgh's obviously the better football team. They didn't necessarily play like it Saturday. Not with all those mistakes they made. 1 for 12 on third down. You don't win a lot of football games doing that, Terry. 1 for
No,
12
not at all.
on third down. I mean, all
And
these things
Cal
we're
got their
talking about today.
turnovers. They
Possession,
got their 2
turnovers,
interceptions.
penalties,
Yeah.
and third down. It's what matters. So Eli did not play well in the second half. Well, no shit, Bober. 1 for 12 on third down. My God, sir. I might retract your invitation to join us next week or whenever
But
you're
they're
available.
still alive. They're still undefeated and moving
6-0
forward.
in the ACC. He thinks we're being disrespectful to him. We're not, but they're not Clemson. No offense, buddy.
They
Uh,
are the only ACC game we picked this week, or
cor-
that we're showing this week.
correct. We do enjoy it though. But yeah, Cal Bahawk and Terry. We talked about that in the preview last week. I thought Pitt would be
Yeah.
good enough to win the football game. I was right, thank God. My pick'ems are getting destroyed. We'll get there in a minute. But but they have forced turnovers, interceptions in every single one of their games.
Big time, yeah.
So Cal, they just can't win. That's the thing. They just can't win the football game. But anyway, Cal missed a go-ahead field goal. Well, there you go. Can't win the football game. You got to close. Who's next, Terry?
This was a late one. Kansas State at Colorado, and Colorado had this toward the end of the game, and Kansas State wins it right at the end. Negative 29 rushing yards for Colorado because they just aired out.
They don't have an offensive line either. They don't have a line that's going to establish the line of scrimmage. Obviously, you say, well, Andrew, the guy threw for 388 yards. Yeah, if Shador Sanders had any better of an offensive line, they'd be destroying people the way he throws the ball. Also, lost Travis Hunter and 3 other receivers in this game to injury and lost the game and had to roar back. You can see, Terry, they were, 24-7? And they came almost all the way back.
Right.
Lost on possession, lost the rushing game.
And that's after losing some big names at receiver.
Yep.
So they can do it, but you're right. I think that offensive line is their biggest thing because Shador Sanders is good. Obviously they talk a lot in Colorado, but he's very good. Travis Hunter's very good. But it is like a video game offense. You drop back, you scramble around, and you throw it.
Yep.
And that's what Colorado does.
Yep. And the thing is, like, I made this comparison before, and Dion, of course, went to Florida State, not Miami. But Miami in the 1980s that won 4 national titles. Well, I guess 91 too. So that span of time where they won the 4 national titles in the decade. They talk teetotal shit. But the thing was, they could back it up. Colorado is not delivering on what they're saying, they're promising, they're doing whatever. And it just makes them the laughing stock of college football. I don't think, there's 6 games, I think, left for Colorado. I don't think you see Dion after this season at Colorado. Because Hunter, Shiloh, and Shador will be gone. And he was very critical of Shiloh. But if you watch the way Shiloh Sanders played defense this past week, coming back from that broken arm against Nebraska, he played gun shy. He played scared to take a hit. Well, you know what you can't do when you're a defensive back in football? Be scared to take a hit. Yeah,
right.
and most of the time, the guys that want to deliver the hits play the safety position. Yeah. Those are those guys. And Shiloh looked like trash this weekend. So that game I did watch, despite how late it was, because it was on after the Oregon and
right. Yeah, and I did
Ohio
the same. I was in the hotel. I watched there was like 3 games going on before this one that were fantastic, multiple overtime games. I was watching those, then I left it on for this. Why don't we get to the top 10 list for this week? Thanks for everybody for voting. The week 7 top 10. Let's go ahead and get it started. Number 10, LSU. So they started out the season with a loss to USC, and they've won since then. Big win against Ole Miss, and they travel to Arkansas this week, which is not going to be easy.
Yeah, I'll reserve my comments. I was about to say the same thing. There have been very good LSU teams that have stubbed their toe playing Arkansas. For whatever reason, this used to be the game, out of the old, was it Southwest Conference? I believe it was, Terry. This used to be the game that finished the season, Thanksgiving game,
right.
Arkansas, LSU. They've rearranged the schedule, whatever. It's fine. But, yeah, I would be very careful if I was LSU with this football game. And not only are you playing Arkansas this week, you got A&M next week.
Well, look at the rest of the schedule. A&M, Alabama, at Florida, which Florida is not as bad as we thought they were going to be.
And neither is Vandy. We can't laugh about Vanderbilt anymore
and
either.
Vandy, and then you end the season with Oklahoma. Even though they just got whipped by Texas, Oklahoma's still a good football team. So that's a pretty brutal slate coming up.
Yep, definitely. And certainly, yeah, Glaber, let's have a little hustle there. Damn it. And Schmidt, what are you doing? Or Holmes, what are you doing? I don't like Holmes.
For those who are just listening to this show, these random comments are about the Yankees game.
Yankees up 4-1. Top of the 7th because you asked.
Why don't we move along to number 9?
Who's number 9?
That would be Tennessee. After narrowly escaping in overtime to Florida, their gift for that one is Alabama this week.
We talked about how this schedule favored Tennessee, at least optically, looking at it superficially. I don't know. Maybe Tennessee's gotten exposed, Terry. And maybe Saturday, you got two offenses that just sling it and wait for their defense to make a play. Who knows? A little disappointing they took overtime to get Florida beat. I understand it's a rivalry. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I know that there was a time when it used to be Tennessee or Florida. That was who was winning the SEC title, but that was 25 years ago.
Right.
And I just don't think Tennessee is as good as I thought they were. And that's a little disappointing, considering how good they seemed to be. But
and it's the same thing we were talking about. The first 3 weeks they played UT Chattanooga, NC State, and Kent State. And then they won at Oklahoma.
NC State was actually a football team, but they didn't play like one,
Right. But then they went to Oklahoma, and Tennessee got the 10-point win, and we really thought they were going to start moving along. But I don't know that Oklahoma's quite there this year either. So that's where that wasn't really a litmus test. But their schedule is not too terrible, but they do have Alabama and Georgia, and that at Vanderbilt, man, how big would that be if Vandy can just keep going and host Tennessee at the end of the season here? That might be big.
Well, I don't think after the Alabama loss or win, in Vandy's case, that you're going to convince them they can't play with Tennessee.
Right.
They're going to think they can play with anybody because they beat Alabama, who beat Georgia, who was the number 1 team. I mean, you can go on and on, Terry. Who came in at number 8? Is it Alabama?
Number 8 is Clemson.
Oh, the Tigers, the other Tigers.
And as we said, they got their big loss against Georgia to start the year, but they're rolling.
It's been pedal to the metal. It's been pedal to the metal in its conference wins. Look at that. NC State, Stanford, Florida State, Wake Forest. And these aren't wins. These are lopsided beatdowns at this point. So
Virginia's a pretty decent team.
Yeah, they're making sure stylistically, Terry, that they're the best football team in the ACC. No offense, Bober.
So in 3 weeks, they got Louisville.
Yep.
They're at Pittsburgh 11-16. That'll be interesting.
That might be the Bober game if he wants to join us.
That would be good. We'll talk to our people.
Talk to our people, Mike. DM me. You know how to get me.
Number 7. Here's where Alabama is after the narrow win against South Carolina, and the loss at Vanderbilt. Alabama climbs a little bit this week to number 7. I think the overtime for Tennessee convinced some people to put Alabama above because I think Tennessee was above last week.
Well, and despite their falling, Missouri, they ain't got an easy road either. Alabama's got back-to-back weeks, Tennessee, Missouri. But you're at the Rocky Top. This is advantage Tennessee. This might be a year Tennessee could actually win this football game.
Yeah. They go to LSU November 9th, and we talk about LSU being really suspect on defense, but the way Alabama's been playing, that could be a pretty tight game for them.
Shoot the damn lights out of the scoreboard, as you like to say, Terry.
That's right. And this one won't be on a crane.
Pay your power bill. But yeah, we'll get to the preview because I know we're running a little over. So let's move along to number 6. Who's number
Number
6?
6 is Penn State. This was a
Holy
team that was
shit!
yeah, it was this is a team that, like, where do you put them? Do you put them higher? Do you put them lower? I guess people saw the overtime and dropped them down a little bit. Um, but they got a bye week, and then they head to Wisconsin. Then they got a big matchup against Ohio State in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's going to be the big one, the whiteout, I'm sure.
Right.
Unless they do the stupid thing and put it on Fox at 12 o'clock. That'd piss me off. Yeah, the bye week comes at a good time for them because they're starting to get into the meaty part of the schedule here. But it's a very manageable part of the schedule. Even if they lose one game, Purdue, Minnesota, Maryland are not going to hang with Penn State. They're just not going to do it.
Right.
And I'll say that as a Big Ten guy. Wisconsin plays a little up. Ohio State, of course, is going to be Ohio State. And Washington, from week to week, it doesn't know that you know what
Yeah.
Washington team you're going to get. So, because they beat Michigan and then got clobbered by Iowa.
Oh, big
So-
time.
so-
40 to Iowa. We didn't mention that to lead in the show.
We threatened to, but Iowa scored 40, folks. And I don't know when the last time Iowa scored 40 against a conference opponent was, but I'm sure it's been a while. So anyway, yeah, Penn State's higher than this, guys. They are better than Miami, who I know is in front of them, and you all are about to get a tangent. Terry, top 5. Let's roll.
Number 5 is Georgia with a loss to Alabama a few weeks ago. 5-1. They're heading to Texas, so we're really about to find out if they're frauds or not.
Bang bang. This is going to be a close one. We'll get to it in the preview. But I'm looking for a big time physical matchup.
All right, let's move on to number 4, Miami. This is where Miami shows up 6-0, but a lucky 6-0.
They should be
Raphael-
4-2.
Yeah. So this is a really suspect undefeated team. I don't think we have any fans that are fans of Miami. I don't know that I've ever met a Miami fan. I mean,
We can keep that streak alive as far as I'm concerned.
they're
you
just
know,
kind of there.
you know how I feel about Miami.
Right.
You know, all of a sudden I'm like Dusty Rhodes about Ric Flair back in '83. I ain't got to spend a lot of time talking about Ric Flair. So Miami is not the number 4 team in the country. Georgia is better than them. Penn State is better than them. They have had the benefit of 2 horribly officiated calls at the end by a cockhair to win football games, and it is absolutely absurd. Miami is going to find a team that will beat them, and it may not be till your ACC championship game against Clemson. Sorry, Mike. But
It
I
may
don't-
be this week, though. I mean, Louisville could show up and do it. I mean, I don't know what to expect from Louisville, but I don't expect Miami to
Inconsistency.
beat about 3 touchdowns or anything.
Inconsistency.
Right.
Terry, let's hit the top 3.
Number 3, Ohio State, after the loss, traded spots with Oregon probably. 1-point loss to the number 3 team, you're number 2. This kind of makes sense. Now they have a bye week. And then they got that big matchup with Nebraska that you said was going to be not close.
No, probably not. 3 touchdowns, I think. But when you ask me what the score's going to be, I'm going to tell you Nebraska by 3
That's right.
because I will never change. But no, this game and I was just thinking, imagine the BCS trying to figure this out right now, Terry. You remember the bowl conference?
Oh,
Yeah.
don't even get me started on that.
Imagine them trying to figure out
I
after that
think we had
banger of a football game Saturday night and having 1 loss Alabama and 1 loss Georgia and undefeated Miami. It would be a nightmare. This is a great team.
yeah.
All joking aside about my love for Ohio State that is non-existent. They played a good game. They made mistakes they shouldn't have made that are very uncharacteristic for a Ohio State football team. And Oregon beat them. And that's all there is to it.
That's
Yeah.
right. I think Oregon started to play better. I mean, they started out a little slow. Um, I don't know what that was. Was that the producer telling us to move along?
No, that was my the dogs coming in. So
Okay. Anyway, so why don't we just go to number 2, and that is Oregon after that win against Ohio State, and they had to Purdue. You know, Oregon started out with a 10-point win against Idaho. We said, is Oregon? Oh, yeah. I don't know about that, Brian. I think I'm going to hold off on the computer poll for the moment. Liberty was way too high in it, but you know, Oregon, we weren't sure what we had. They beat Boise State by 3, but I think that Oregon State game, when they played that Oregon State game, they really showed up.
in
They just blew
Corvallis,
them out,
in
and since then
Corvallis,
they've been rolling.
yeah. And the fact that they beat Oregon State as bad as they did away, huge deal. Um, and they handled Michigan State as well, UCLA. So Purdue, good luck. It's like a 10 o'clock game, I think, Friday night, Terry,
Mm,
or maybe
okay.
9 o'clock game. But Purdue sucks, and will be with the new coach, if not this year, next year. And then we're going to see what Oregon can do. But Illinois, Michigan, Maryland, Wisconsin, Washington, very favorable schedule to the Ducks. Quack, quack.
Let's go ahead and roll it over and show you that number 1 is, in fact, Texas, and they host Georgia this week after their 6-0 start and completely blowing out Oklahoma. Georgia looks like the real deal. I mean, Texas looks like the real deal here. Like we said, they've got depth and they've got talent, and
And they have yet to be challenged.
yeah.
And that will change in Austin Saturday afternoon or evening.
All right, let me run it down. Number 10, LSU. Number 9, Tennessee. Number 8, Alabama. Number 7, Clemson. Number 6, Penn State. Number 5, Georgia. Number 4, Miami. Number 3, Ohio State. Number 2, Oregon. And still sitting at the top, the Texas Longhorns at number 1.
Yep.
Well, that was week 7. Why don't we move along to week 8 games that we care about? That means that our teams are in there no matter how much they suck. That's what that means. Anyway, let's start it out with Miami at Louisville. We talked about it a minute ago, Saturday at noon. Miami is favored by 4.5. What are you feeling here?
I'm feeling like that Louisville is not nearly as good of a football team as we thought, and
Yeah.
Miami is not nearly as good of a football team as everybody seems to think. They've had to have a little luck, which we know during football you've got to have some luck. This is a way. I'm taking the Canes, and I'm going to take them by a field goal because
Okay.
for whatever reason, Louisville did not close against Notre Dame, and whoever else beat them, I forget now. They didn't close against them either, and there were opportunities for Louisville to win both those football games, and they didn't do it. So I am not picking Louisville. I'm going to go with Miami by a field goal.
Yeah, so to
And
combine with
probably with
that,
the help of a referee. Let me put that out there. I'll go ahead and say that too.
Miami's got a little bit. I'm not saying they're this good, but they play a little bit like those USC teams used to. They would play a road game and get down by 2 touchdowns and storm back. Miami has a little bit of that. That may happen this weekend. I think they win by 10.
Yeah.
All right. Now we go also Saturday at noon. Indiana is favored by 6.5 hosting Nebraska. This was a little higher number than I expected.
It was 3.5. They moved it to 6.5.
Wow.
Indiana, you can thank the Nebraska Cornhuskers for selling out the rest of your stadium. You're welcome. We do travel well. The intention apparently is to wear black. I will tell you this: the coach from James Madison, Kurt Cagnetti, I believe it is,
Oh,
Cagnetti,
the
however,
Signetti, or yeah, the guy
yeah,
that he said, "Look, Google me, I just win."
we always win. Yeah,
Yeah.
so he's going to admire this home run from Giancarlo Stanton. 5-1, go Yankees. But
So wait a minute, hold on. So you're talking about the Nebraska game, and even that gets interrupted by A home run by the Yankees. Wow.
Giancarlo, 5-1. Go Yankees. So 6.5 points. People are in love with the fact that Indiana has scored a lot of points, has not they've got this number 5 offense or defense, whatever, defensive, yada yada. You can see how invested I am in that right now. I
Right.
don't care. You know why? They haven't played an offense as good as Nebraska, and they
Mhm.
haven't played a defense anywhere close to Nebraska. Their first 6 games have been um, of lesser opponents, put it that way, including Northwestern. Nebraska goes to Bloomington to play a 12 o'clock kick. It's on Fox. It'll be a big game, 5-1, 6-0. If Nebraska wins, they're bowl eligible for the first time since 2016. Nebraska's defense is the key to this game. Raiola already had his bad game. Nebraska's going to run the ball some. They're going to throw. He's not going to make a lot of mistakes. Indiana's defense is going to get worn out by the experienced offensive line in Nebraska. Run the ball, lean on them fourth quarter. However, if Nebraska's defense can do what they did to Shedeur Sanders, because they have a very good quarterback at Indiana, but they can squeeze the pocket and shut him out, it's going to be ugly. Say you're right, got his black shirt this week, Terry. The punter got his black shirt this week. You know who doesn't have a black shirt yet?
Who's that?
James Williams, the backup edge rusher who had the highest ranking of anybody on the defensive line the week ago, because they didn't play this past week. 2 sacks, 5 tackles for loss, 2 broken up passes. The boy can ball. He's going to have another good game against Indiana. Nebraska wins this by 10 in Bloomington.
It's a big number there. That flips it over by nearly 17 there. I'll go. I think Nebraska's going to out physical Indiana, but I think it's going to be a little lower scoring, and I say Nebraska by 2. Now we go Auburn at Missouri. Missouri
Oof.
favored by 6.5. Here's the deal, and I say it every week. Auburn plays with everybody and just finds a way to screw it up. Missouri doesn't seem as good as we thought they were at first. I'm picking my Tigers here by 3.
So it's in Columbia,
Yep. Como.
Como. Missouri has been exposed. Auburn's not nearly good enough yet to beat them, though. I'll take Missouri by the 7 points.
All right.
I think your quarterback play is too suspect.
Yeah, I think it's going to have to be run the ball and play defense. It can't be try to light it up. And I think Hugh Freeze wants to light it up, and he's done that. I saw somewhere where Auburn and Vanderbilt um, are tied for the most different people with receiving touchdowns this year at 10.
Which is impressive, spreading it
It is
around, yeah.
impressive, but you got to keep the ball on offense for that to matter. So I think we're going to quit lighting it up so much and run the football because supposedly we got the best running back in the SEC. We just hadn't used him enough.
And
So
that's where I'm saying I don't trust your offense. And what I mean by
right,
that, are you a running team or are you a passing team? Because whenever you guys
he
throw the
wants to be a
ball,
passing team.
whenever
Yeah,
you throw the ball, you turn the ball over. Auburn does not take care of the ball offensively. Then you're asking your defense to go get it back in a hostile environment where Missouri did not have a bye week, Terry, but they might as well have. They drummed whoever they played like 45 to
at
3
UMass,
or
is that what that
yeah, it
was?
was UMass. That's
Yeah,
exactly who it was. Yeah.
at UMass. For some
Yeah,
reason, they went to UMass.
whatever. But I mean, my point is that it wasn't an off week. Like Auburn had a legit
Right,
bye.
right.
Missouri had a practice, for
Yeah,
the lack of a better way to say it. I just I just can't trust Auburn's offense. I don't think Hugh's there yet. And I mean, I appreciate you picking Nebraska. You don't have to do that. But you can't deny that Auburn is 3-3 and
2-4,
probably one of the what's that?
2-4.
Excuse me. Auburn is 2-4 and probably the best 2-4 team in the country. Because what kind of compliment is that? You know,
Right.
when Nebraska
We've been
had
that a lot. Yeah.
those 9 games, they lost by a total of 47 points. Nebraska was the best 3-9 team in the country, Terry. What the fuck does that even mean? Like,
Even
you're
though
good.
there's a lot of truth to it, it's like I hate saying that. Yeah.
Yeah, you're
But
good
it's
at
the truth.
You're good at
Because I mean, they've
losing.
played. You're good at losing. I mean, we got a 10-point loss against Georgia. Everything else has been a score.
Yeah, and let's face it, Georgia, regardless of what their inconsistencies have been, it's a good football team.
A lot
A,
more talent. A lot
yeah,
more talent.
a
Yeah.
really good
Sometimes the
football team.
talent gap is what wins the football game.
Yeah.
But let's move along to Rocky
Oof.
Top and the Crimson Tide Saturday at 3:30 comes to
Okay,
visit.
there's a decimal there. I thought that said Alabama was favored by 15, not
15.
1.5. I was
No,
like, whoa.
no, 1.5 point favorites, the Crimson Tide. And
You
I
go
don't know. This
first.
is tough. This one's tough here because last week we thought Alabama was going to bounce back after the loss. This is a rivalry game. If they don't show up to this one, it could get ugly. I'm going Tennessee by a touchdown.
Tennessee by a touchdown. It's a rivalry game. I think it'll be punch for punch. I think this one's going to go back and forth, back and forth. I don't think you're going to get either of their defenses to establish any sort of dominance whatsoever. So we can disagree, because I don't know that we've disagreed yet, except the Auburn game.
Mhm.
I'm going to go Alabama by a field goal.
Okay.
I'm going to say they steal it from Tennessee. But this one is close. Like this one, honestly, could be as good as the Georgia-Texas game. Really.
If this were Nick Saban, I would say Alabama by 10
Yeah.
to bounce back and do that, especially with Tennessee showing some vulnerability. But I don't know that this Alabama team's able to do that. So that's where I go for that. Good. We need to disagree on stuff.
That's
This
right.
next one, I don't know that we're going to disagree. It's got a little potential because Georgia Tech could show up, but Notre Dame at Georgia Tech, Notre Dame favored by 8.5. We don't talk about Notre Dame much. They're kind of just sitting there.
Notre Dame lost a big time player. And I forget what it is, but it's for the season and it's a hip injury. I forget what position he plays. I want to say it's defense. So I'm going
Cornerback
Georgia. I'm
Morrison.
going Georgia Tech on this one.
Oh, wow.
And I will take Georgia Tech by 3.
Okay. I think the spread's about right, even though it's on the road. I just think Notre Dame's a team that we haven't talked about that's pretty good. I think Notre Dame by a touchdown. All right.
All
Now,
right.
defending national, can we still call them defending national champions? I think they've given up on that one already. Michigan at Illinois, Saturday at 3:30. Michigan favored by 3.5 on the road.
They
And I
just called interference on my guys. What the hell? 5-1, no outs, top of the 8th, 2 on, second and third. I don't know what Hill is doing, but they just called interference on the pitcher. And the pitcher, they called interference on. Okay, I see what he did. Pushed him out of the way. Anyway, lame, lame. Okay,
so I'll go first
back
here.
to the task at hand, Terry. Michigan, Illinois, in Champaign, I believe it is, not
Yeah,
Ann Arbor.
right. And I think Michigan is. This is kind of a tough one. I think the 3.5 probably makes sense, but I don't know. I don't think Michigan is even that good this year. I think they've fallen off that much. I'm going with Illinois by 2.
Damn it, Terry. You stole my thunder again. Illinois by 7. They're going to beat up Michigan. They have better quarterback play. Their defense is fundamentally sound, and they're at home. And they're coached by a guy who's won a lot of football games in the Big Ten, be that at Wisconsin or now Illinois. Plus, they beat Nebraska. So I'm going with Illinois.
All right. We got to quit agreeing on stuff. We may disagree here. Colorado at Arizona, and Colorado is playing at a reasonable time on the West Coast here. Saturday at 4, Arizona at home over Colorado, favored by 3 points. Why don't you take it first here?
So I will not pick Colorado, but Arizona, while we're here, has been very disappointing this year inside the Big
Yeah,
12. They're one of those teams that you talked about. You've been flipped the Big 12 rankings upside down. You know, we thought
yeah.
they'd be toward the top, not toward the bottom. At Arizona, without Hunter potentially. I mean,
Yeah, I
obviously
don't
we're
know the
early in
status
the
of those
week.
injuries.
We're early
Yeah,
in the week. Um, but I still don't think they've got an offensive line. Oh, good. Cleveland just made this a lot closer. It's now 5-2. What the hell? I'm going Arizona, and give me Arizona by, let's go 6.
I think even with the injuries, I think Colorado, um, they got a what are they 4-2 now? They played tight with Kansas State, stormed back even after the injuries the other day. I think they've got enough firepower, even being very one-dimensional. I think Colorado wins this by a touchdown.
Yeah, I mean,
All right.
it's genuinely a coin flip, probably. All right, LSU, Arkansas, in Fayetteville, Pig Suey, all the way, because I am not picking Brian Kelly and LSU. Let's go ahead and get Sam Pittman and Bobby Petrino a big time upset. Give me the Razorbacks by the 3 that LSU is favored.
I had not picked this before right now. Let me think about it here. See, what's really suspect here is that LSU defense and which Arkansas. The question for me is which Arkansas team's going to show up. They've shown
Correct.
up and done well. They've shown up and stunk. I'm going LSU by the 3. Even though I think that their time's coming, I don't think it's at Arkansas. And here's the big one. Georgia at Texas, 7:30 Saturday night. Texas favored by 3.5. I put them as UT here. No matter what the SEC says, I called them UT. 3.5 point favorite. I'm gonna say Texas by 10.
Yeah, so this is where we were talking earlier. Texas has not been tested. They will be tested on Saturday night. Georgia is going to be very aggressive defensively. However, Georgia surrendered 300 plus passing yards to Mississippi State. You've got 2 very good quarterbacks with a receiving group, including Bond, who you might remember, Terry, caught the touchdown for the win against Auburn last year in the end zone on 4th and 24 or 34, whatever the hell it
31,
was. 4th
something
and
like that.
31.
Yeah, I think there's car tags with that on it around here somewhere.
Bond may not play, though. He left the game early. Oh, good. Luke Weaver's in the game. Close this sumbitch down already. Anyway, I'm going Texas. Give me Texas by 13. Because I think they're the most complete team in college football. And I'm hoping Georgia makes it closer than that. But you can't surrender 300 yards to Steve Sarkisian's offense. He's calling the offense with Quinn Ewers and or Arch Manning as the quarterback. It's not going to work. So, and they've got a real good physical defense with a good line of scrimmage. So, give me Texas by 13.
All right, and our final game Saturday at 7:30, Kansas State at West Virginia. West Virginia is another inconsistent team. We've seen them show up and play with some good teams. Kansas State, after that game with Colorado that went down to the wire, does this one sneak up on them? I'm going to
No,
go ahead and say no.
I don't think so. I'm going to steal your thunder. I am done
Yeah, go
picking
ahead.
West Virginia until they show me that they can actually consistently play football games. I'll take Kansas State by a touchdown in this one because I respect
Yeah,
Morgantown, West Virginia. Otherwise, forget about it. And like you said, K-State coming off a pretty good win against Colorado, but one that they nearly blew. So, but I'm going K-State. I think they're a better football team than West Virginia.
Yeah, I think Kansas State impressed me the other day. Um, I think Colorado's a pretty decent team in the Big 12. Obviously, we don't think they're going to be in the championship game, but Kansas State, I thought, stuck with it and played hard and won that. I just think they're going to outmatch West Virginia. I'm going to take them by 13 on the road.
Big win. You're predicting a big win, Terry.
Big win for Kansas State.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but let's talk about our picks. Bober overtook me this week. Bryant's still in the lead at 40-27. Thanks for not picking those 3 games that week. Bober at 39-30 in second place now, and I am in third place at 38-31.
I'm in 8th place. I've won 33 I've picked correctly. I'd still do better on this show than I do on the actual pick'ems from ESPN. So, for those Yankee fans out there, it's the bottom of the 8th, 5-2. Weaver just got out of a jam. Runners on the corner. That's why he's the closer. He's no Mariano Rivera, though, Terry, but a good young kid. Hopefully he can be a Yankees closer for a while, which has nothing to do with college football.
I got to see if we're related. I call him up, ask him for some money or something like that.
Yeah, but now this was fun. Always fun with you, buddy. Look, we went a little bit long, like 7 minutes or something. I don't know, maybe 10, but
maybe 20.
There was no, because we had our break. Don't be adding time to this. But still winning. Who's that? Oh, Bryant.
He is.
Whatever.
He's winning the pick'em thing.
Whatever.
He wants a belt or something.
He's not getting one. He might get to pick the playoffs with us. But yeah, if the SEC keeps disappointing me, I'm gonna keep losing, because that's really where my slide in these pick'ems has been, is the SEC.
The SEC's all over the place except for Texas. It's really exciting though. The SEC's turning into what we expected the Big 12 to be, but the Big 12's kind of doing that too, but they're just upside down.
Yep, and they're all over the place. And then of course, I didn't see who they're playing, but our story we've been watching because of our buddy Dave, Florida State. God help them, because they're 1-5. Hopefully they can win a football game this week. Because it ain't pretty.
Yeah.
It ain't pretty.
Well,
but
thanks everybody for hanging with us a little into overtime.
And entertaining the Yankees talk, because Giancarlo hit a home run. Boom. Talk about it, Terry.
Okay, you can talk about that. I'm gonna wrap it up. But thanks everybody for voting.
Not the Mets. That's
thanks
all I'm
for
saying.
tuning in. But hey, at least the Phillies are going right.
That's true too.
Well, thanks. It's been fun, everybody. Thanks, Bober. Thanks, Andrew and Allison. Thank you to Bryant and anybody else that has been watching us. Anybody that votes. If you've got ideas, let us know. We appreciate it. Obviously, not a full-time job, so we can't do everything. And I don't have time to do the computer polls, so that's part of the reason that hasn't been a thing. But we appreciate the interest everybody's shown, and we're going to keep going. We are about halfway through the season, and it's been a good one so far.
This has been, and before you close us down, this has been one of the better football seasons I can remember. Yeah. And part of it is Nebraska's winning some football games. They haven't won in a long time. But
we got a 12-team playoff coming up.
But the playoffs coming, and the variety of teams actually playing and showing up, the storylines. You would thought Michigan might go down a little bit with Harbaugh not being there, losing a lot of players. Right. But to watch Michigan do what they're doing, and then Oregon do, and Washington, good Lord. I mean, you start naming teams. What about Florida State? Biggest collapse I think I've seen probably in 15 years or more. And I couldn't name the other one off the top of my head if you put a gun to it right now. So a lot of fun, Terry, halfway there, like Bon Jovi sang. But for tonight, we're done. We're there. So take us on home, buddy.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Andrew and Allison, everybody that tuned in, everybody that voted. It's been fun. Be a champ this week and everything that you do. See you next time, everybody.